Hi, everyone, and welcome to Interesting People. I'm Art Nelson. This week, I had the opportunity to interview via Zoom musician Michael Also. So sit back and enjoy.
I was born in Long Island, but I live in Queens, and I've been here my whole life. And my dad was the person who got me into music, I would say first. I mean, there was always music playing in my house, and he got me a small guitar, a three-quarter size guitar when I was age 5. And he taught me 2 songs in the first night. And I don't know if you want me to answer this question now or later, but it changed my life, and I couldn't stop playing. And music was everything to me, and it still is. The reason that I am into all that older music, my parents' music, is because they were the ones that introduced me to it. Whenever I would go in the car with my parents, they were playing classic rock radio. So that's what I was pretty much exposed to before hearing all the music of my generation. And for some reason, I preferred that music that my parents were playing, whether that be the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or Pink Floyd, Eric Clapton, who are some of my biggest influences still to this day. So I would hear that music in the car or in the house. They would just play it, and it just got ingrained in me. It's just this ability to recognize notes and play them as close to the note values. And so I am able to recognize that, but it's something I think that you can learn. Is if I'm at a performance and I need to play this certain note, or I need to start at the beginning of a song, I'll think of another song that features that note. So I could think of a song that's in the key of E, With a Little Help from My Friends by the Beatles. So the first note of that song, well, the first chord of that song is an E chord. So since I can recognize that song, I know the note that I need to hit for what other song I'm singing. My process for learning songs would be listening to the song as a whole, seeing what sections are, and then going more minute, going into detail and saying, okay, what are the drums playing for these 20 seconds? What's the bass doing for these 20 seconds? What's the guitar doing? What's the vocals doing? And so I'll just attack each of them one by one and learn them and practice them. And then if I'm doing a cover where I'm performing all the parts, then I'll really study those sections and practice them so that I can perform them the way that the original musicians did. And it's harder than you think, but you learn a lot about their process and why they chose those notes, maybe different decisions than you would have made. And last night I was doing a cover of the Beatles' A Day in the Life. And Paul McCartney is making these incredible decisions on the bass guitar that I wouldn't have chosen to do. I would have done something simpler. But what he does is really, really intelligent. And it's just very interesting because I never really listened to what's happening in the bass part for that song. I was just listening to the song as a whole. But when you kind of listen to the individual instruments, you see how everything comes together, pun not intended. The process to cover a song on all instruments is a lot of work, but it really rounds you as a musician and helps you if you work with other musicians, because if you're seeing what the bass player is playing and what the drummer is playing and what the keyboards are playing in the song, it helps you become a better musician and see where things should go and what you should do at a certain point in a song. Should I be playing this during a chorus, or should I be playing something lighter during a verse? So it really teaches you song structure, arrangement, how to play well with others. it's very tedious. It's just a lot of repeat listening to the original song. I've done covers by the Beatles. I've done covers by the band Rush and Pink Floyd that were easier to me. But also listening to these songs for a long time helps when you're about to attempt these covers. The song Africa by Toto hadn't been as known to me as these other bands like the Beatles and Pink Floyd and Rush and Eric Clapton. So when I have to learn the song, it's much more involved. If I already know it, it's much easier. If I could say that listening is one of the most important things of being a musician. And if you could be a good listener and listen to what's being played, if you're playing with others, seeing where you fit into that context is very important. Should I be playing while someone else is soloing? Should I be playing this while someone is hitting this high note? How can my job, if when I'm playing with others, is how can I support them to be their best? Of course, I still get anxious before performances, and usually performers will choose a song at the beginning of their set, at the beginning of a show, that's not too difficult. And so we choose easier songs so that we can kind of relax in front of others, in front of a small crowd or a large crowd. And I find myself a little bit more nervous in front of smaller crowds because it's more intimate. And again, after that first or second song, you kind of relax. Usually I'm thinking of what the next lyric is that I have to sing. Do I have to raise the volume on my guitar for a solo or anything like that? Is someone walking in the middle of a song to wherever I'm playing? Are people dancing? Are people singing along? Are they not paying attention? There's a lot of things that are going on in my head. Did I just miss the note that I was supposed to hit? Was I flat? Was I sharp? Jan Kloos is a singer-songwriter from Germany. He's also lived in South Africa and moved to Cleveland and then New York. And he's been a professional singer-songwriter for the past 20 years. And I met him about 3 years ago at a performance in Long Island. And then he was performing again in New York City. And I was blown away by his performance of original music. And I walked up to him after his set and I said to him, I love your songs, I love your voice, and I love your control. You can do what you want with your voice at the right moment. And that's something that I was looking to do myself because I was looking for a voice coach at that time. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, do you teach voice? And he said, I don't, but we can work something out. So a few weeks later, he hit me up and he became my vocal coach. And after that, we started working together and I started playing in his band, lead guitar and backing vocals. And I've been doing that for about 2 years now, 2+ years, and it's been incredible. Mm. So while we were doing that, the pandemic hit and he said, I would love to start a podcast where I speak to my friends and colleagues in the music and film and acting industry and just talk to them about their careers and how they've been impacted by the pandemic and what they're working on now, and kind of dispel some information on how they got to where they're at. And I loved that idea. And he framed it as he just wishes he could share the conversations that he had when he was backstage performing at venues, meeting artists and performers. And so that's what this podcast is. I like to say, or we like to say, that it's a backstage pass to the best in music and film and tech. So my role in producing that is that I'll research these guests along with Jan, and we'll come up with some general questions that we have to ask and some more specific questions that we'd like to ask these guests. I'm really grateful for the times that I got to perform live with the people that I've played with. I've played with Godfrey Townsend for over 5 years. And through him, I've met so many people, including yourself, I would say. And I'm just very fortunate for having Godfrey Townsend in my life. And we're working on some stuff right now. I got to play with Godfrey Townsend and his band at the Space at Westbury a couple of years ago for Godfrey's Clapton is Godfrey tribute, where he does a tribute to Eric Clapton. And most people are aware that Eric Clapton's my favorite guitar player. So for me to go up there and play Eric's songs on a stage in front of hundreds of people was life-changing for me. And it was probably the most important moment of my musical career. Another great moment was playing with Jan Close at the Bitter End, the first time I got to play with him. And that was in 2019. And we were playing one of his songs. And at one point, the song ended. But then he kind of gestured to the band, let's go back into it and kind of do a free-form improv over the chords. And so that began to happen. And so I was improvising live at the Bitter End, a legendary club in New York. And I was not nervous at all, but it just came out so great that I was so happy that it happened. Pentatonic is probably the most used scale, and it's the easiest, I would say, to play. And I would say it's my go-to. But a lot of times I'm just thinking what could be sung over this section of music. You want to have some type of melody, and you can use the pentatonic scale as a basis for that. You can play the notes in the scale as they appear, but maybe play the first note of the pentatonic scale twice and the second note 3 times, or whatever. It doesn't have to be formulaic, but you can use that scale as a tool for constructing a solo. And not always am I using just the pentatonic scale. I might be using something else like a harmonic minor scale. It depends on what the song calls for. You wouldn't really want to throw something that's Middle Eastern in a standard blues shuffle. I don't think that would sound right. It would throw people off. They'd be like, that's interesting, and not expected. But it all depends on what you're trying to do and what mood you're trying to convey. And I think what's most important is playing what's right for the song, what's right for that moment. I would like to accomplish a lot of things in music, and some of them include performing as often as possible around New York and other states. I'd love to play with as many people as possible. Right now I'm performing with Godfrey Townsend and Jan Close, and I'll do my solo cover shows, which I'm very happy to do. And I also have a duo and a trio available as well. And we've been playing all around New York and having a great time. So performing for people is one of my favorite things because I feel really connected to them. And when you hear people singing with you and dancing, it's just this positive feedback. It's just really great. And then people come up to you 6 feet away from you and they say, we loved your performance, we liked your voice, we liked your guitar, you played this solo note for note, or you really took me back to this record. Or no one plays this song. And I get that recently for playing a song, Incense and Peppermints by Strawberry Alarm Clock. which gets a lot of the older generation really excited because they haven't heard that song and no one performs that live. So it's exciting for me to be playing these songs that are celebrated by so many people, as well as myself. I'm working on a studio project with Godfrey Townsend. He's got a lot of songs that he's written over the past 40 years that he is beginning to attack in his home studio. So we're listening to all of his old demos and saying, let's do that song, let's do this song. I had done a cover earlier this year with my family of the Mamas and the Papas song, California Dreamin', that I have set to release in the near future. And we were very fortunate to work with you, Art, to film the video. So I'm very looking forward to sharing that on YouTube and Facebook and all the socials.
All the leaves are brown, and the sky is gray. I've been for a walk on a winter's day. I'd be safe and warm if I was in LA. California dreaming on such a winter's day.
People can find me on socials on Facebook at Michael Also, on Instagram at I Happen to Have, IHAPPENTOHAVE. And it's also I Happen to Have on TikTok and Twitter, I Happen to Have. And I do have a website, michaelalso.net, and you can see all of my upcoming shows there. You can do michaelalso.net/shows, and there's a bunch of performance videos and original music that I've done there.
Thanks again for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe to get notifications for future content and more interesting people.